Welcome to the Faith Stories of Our Saviors. Today we speak with Larry and Shawn Hildebrandt. Larry and Shawn have been members at Our Saviors for right around 16 years. Their three children were very active in our youth group at Our Saviors. So thank you to Larry and Shawn today. Thank you for the blessing you are to our Saviors. Well, first of all, Larry and Shawn, thanks so much for being here today and sharing some of your faith story with the people of Our Saviors. So I thought I'd start out by asking you, how do you serve God and God's people at Our Saviors? What are some of the things that you have done here at Our Saviors since you've been members?
We started with Sunday school teaching. And we kind of grew with our children and then taught confirmation. We were lucky enough to be asked to be mentors several times. And I love all the options and opportunities the church has to give to families. So in doing so, I want to serve and keep them going. I recently got recruited to the nomination committee.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Have been able to help with new member evening, which is really fun. And to get to share with them everything we love about Our Saviors.
What are some of the things you've done, Larry?
I've been on the youth board a couple different times. Also served then on as the representative on the actual church board, also with the stewardship committee. I was on that for I believe 2 terms. So that was a really good experience because that was a part of the church that I had never experienced before at our other churches we'd been at. So learned a lot there. So, and then also with being part of the youth board, I went on one of the Boundary Waters trips. Which was a really, really awesome experience. Just being involved with the kids and just in a faith-based trip like that, we needed all the faith we had because we experienced a lot of storms, and it was.
I remember that trip.
Yeah, so it was. We did a lot of praying on that trip, planned and unplanned. But and like Shawn said too, just as our kids were involved in things, with the music programs and things like that, that's just been a great experience from a family standpoint. And this, maybe is probably one of the other later questions, but the other thing that really attracted us to Our Saviors was the multi-generational aspect. When we lived in the Twin Cities and the St. Cloud areas, there were newer churches, so it was mostly just families. They didn't have the grandparents there and that kind of thing. We liked coming here where you saw all generations, people and their grandparents and grandkids, and just all the different aspects of that. That's how we both grew up in that. So
yeah, and if you don't have that family in town, it's really nice to have a church where there's lots of ages kind of helping you raise your children. Really,
yep, exactly.
So you've lived in many different places. And it's been important to the two of you each time to find a church. Can you just talk a little bit about, what that's like, how that would be a priority for you as a couple when you would move to a new place?
When we lived in Brooklyn Center, we church shopped, and there were a lot of different options. But we ended up with Cross of Glory, who was, at that time, had Pastor Chelberg. And the ironic part about that is when we moved here, we're looking for a dental office. And I saw the name Chelberg, and I'm like, let's give it a go. Sure enough, Pastor Chelberg had been his father. So that was kind of ironic. And then in Sartell, we went to Celebration, and the first person that greeted us when we moved in was Pastor Tom. He lived a block away, and he said, I heard you were moving in, and here's when our church services are. And they just had an awesome youth program, and all the families were so great. But there again, we didn't have a lot of elderly, but we we got involved in a marriage encounter group. There were like 5 of us couples and all ages. And we met monthly at each other's homes. And it was the best experience, best conversation. I'll have to talk to you more about that.
So really, part of that marriage encounter was marriage enrichment, like helping you grow in your marriage, kind of building a community with other couples.
Yep.
But then also making your faith, as part of your marriage and part of just who you are and what you do as a family.
Exactly.
I'm guessing.
Exactly. It gave us a different aspect. Our kids were all kind of, in the busy ages at that time, and it kind of helped us get back together and explore our faith with our marriage and everything too. So you focus so much on your kids, but it helped us focus on us and how much our faith meant to us. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure your kids can see that, because that has been a priority for you each time you move, is to find that new church home, a place where you can worship as a family and your children could grow in faith and be involved.
Yeah, and that was the underlying thing for all of our church choices, I think, was the type of youth program. Just because we both grew up going to Sunday school and that being a priority with our families, and we want to make sure our kids had that good base like that. And
We had Walter League in Mountain Lake.
So that must have been a Missouri Synod church.
Yes.
correct, yeah.
Yes, Walter Lee.
Yeah.
So, what about, has faith, there been a time in your life where, or maybe many times, but where you've called on your faith for guidance or for strength, or you just had to lean on your faith because things were difficult?
I can, one time that really stands out for me was we were living in Brooklyn Center, and I had an opportunity to, well, it started out, I was a smoker, and I quit smoking, and it was a lot of challenge, and I did a lot of prayer, a lot of reflection to help me get through that. I had tried many times, and anyways, so the beginning of that summer, I quit smoking, and then later that summer, I got recruited by a recruiter to take a job in St. Cloud, and so we did a lot of talking, a lot of prayer, a lot of thought about moving there, because it would involve moving, uprooting our family, taking a different job. I'd been at the same job for about 15 years, and so that summer was a lot of
Change.
tough change and everything. And so we made the choice to move. So of course all those things, there's a lot going on, and you're just hoping and praying that you did the right choice for your family and everything. And then so we took that job, and we made our plans to move, did a lot of house shopping that fall, and found our house, dream home. And before I could tell my parents about it, my dad passed away, sudden heart attack.
Oh, wow.
So it all these things threw at us at once, and through that, it took a lot of faith and a lot of praying that we'd get through it, and that things would get better. And we moved our family, and it turned out really well. And that of course all goes to having faith that it would, and just a lot of prayer.
It reminds me of the story of Jesus and the storm. And life is like that, so stormy and windy, changes, a death in the family, and Jesus, or our faith, just being that center, peace, be still, that's how we can get through it. Otherwise it can be it is very difficult. Anything you want to add to that, Shawn, about faith getting you through any hard times?
I count on it, and I try to respect and appreciate it first and foremost. I'm just glad I have it. It just, people get hit with a lot, and working at the clinic when you saw a lot, and if you have that base, you know that this too will pass, or hopefully the next day will be easier. It's a very good base that I try not to take for granted.
I like that, that base, the center. It's there. And sometimes it's hard to even explain it or describe it, but it gives you that sense of confidence or peace or hope that you're going to get through it.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a little phrase that I always like, and I always refer to that in my head, and it's, if God brings you to it, God will bring you through it. And it's just, you know, simple, it's easy to remember, and it's something that you can hearken back to under almost any situation.
So, what does this church mean to you, our Saviors? What about it, you know, is important to you or connects you to the place?
Yes, it's like recharging my battery. And I do miss it. We're being extra cautious and doing the sermons at home, which is, thank goodness we have that option.
Right.
For sure.
But I did love it when we could be outside. And it's so welcoming. I just have a sense of peace when I'm here. I love watching it grow. I mean, there's still charter members here, and I love hearing the stories from them. I like all the different age groups.
Yeah.
So it's one of our charter members that invited you to join our Saviors. And you maybe want to tell everybody who that is, Larry.
Joanne Peterson.
Okay.
Yep. She had just left the cable company that I came here to be the manager of, and she knew that I was coming down, and she knew that I was being recruited by another Lutheran church in town that would frequently come into the office as well to talk to me, and that happened to be Pastor John Anderson, and he ended up becoming the bishop eventually. But Joanne was always, you know, she would make sure every time she stopped in the office after she'd retired and asked me if I joined yet. And Joanne, for those of you that know Joanne, she has a very persuasive way about her. But you know, she really extolled the virtues, and that was pre-remodel when the church was still laid up differently. And I still remember visiting when I think it was this wall here had all the pictures of the members on the wall I believe it was above the mailboxes, I think, if I remember correctly. But it was, you know, once we came here and we saw the intergenerational, you know, grandpas and grandmas and grandkids, and it really brought us back to what we grew up in, that type of a church. And you know, Joanne was of course, we would run into her at church if we were at the same service and everything, and she would always give me that sly little grin, like, I told you you'd like this place, you know. So that was really, really nice to have somebody attest to it for us.
Yeah, that's a special memory of one of our charter members.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say about what the church means to you now, just personally?
Some of our favorite, or my favorite services are Ash Wednesday and Palm Sunday. And the messages that are relayed on those days. I mean, they're talking to me. And, you know, one time it was, you know, everyone gives up sugar or whatever they're going to do for Lent. And the one was about gossip and other things, and I'm like, oh, what a different way to look at it. And that stood out to me when you delivered that. And now during the pandemic, your messages, you know, you're on a calendar year, but you're also making it day-to-day advice and guidance, and I really respect those messages.
Well, that is good to hear, that God is working through those messages to bring comfort and hope.
We're listening.
And guidance. That's what we hope and pray for.
Yeah. One of the other things that really stand out to me about our Saviors through the years has been the strength of the congregation. You know, we went through a lot of changes. We've been here, you know, approximately 16, 17 years, and with the changing of pastors over the years, there was quite a change. And I think just it's really a tribute to the strength of the congregation that they've made through all those trials and tribulations of switching pastors and, you know, having interims and things like that. And it's just, you know, they've kept going, and they've kept the programs alive. They kept the youth programs alive, and that's a big attaboy to the congregation, because that's a time when a congregation can splinter a little bit, and I think that was very well minimized here just by keeping status quo going, you know, in spite of the changes.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it, because that is the strength of the congregation, are the people who are here and who have been sticking it out from those very first charter members and all of the ups and downs of any congregation. And yeah, this church, the people here have always come through, as you said, stayed strong. Yeah, it's wonderful. Are there other things about, you know, as you think about growing up, your own church or your Sunday school or mentors you had, something that really stands out in helping to shape your faith from early on?
So having the kids, Brittany was confirmed in Sertow, and so when Trevor and Anna went through the confirmation and the first communion and everything here, we had never been at a Seder supper like they presented here, and I was just like, wow, this is above and beyond. It was so impressive, and the service was geared completely around them, and I gotta believe that stood out to them too, and that was very impressive.
It's so interesting, because even as it's so special for the kids, sometimes when you're a parent going through it, you're kind of relearning, and maybe you have some aha moments of things that, now I even have a better understanding.
Right.
Because I'm experiencing it with my child.
Yeah. And with confirmation, when I was confirmed, it was 8th grade, and it was every Saturday morning, being stressed because you had to recite what you memorized out of the catechism.
Right.
And oh my gosh, you know, could I remember everything? And I know we've walked away from that a little bit in how we teach confirmation now. And I mean, granted, you can always read it, but it's kind of nice to be able to recite everything. And we were on a farm, and so Friday night after the game, I'd stay at Grandma and Grandpa's, and I could walk to church for confirmation so that Mom and Dad didn't have to come in and out. And it was about the only time I really was with Pastor Kitzman. He taught the confirmation, and we were all together, and I had one of the larger classes, and it was really neat.
So you had a really good experience of that kind of one-on-one or one in a small group with the pastor, and
Yeah.
That's great that you can remember that with such fond memories. And I think sometimes when we memorize it, it's something that's written on our heart. I mean, it's there forever.
Good way to look at it.
You can recall it.
Yeah.
How about you, Larry? Something from growing up that shaped?
I think, you know, part of it wasn't so good, but it was just the strength my mother had growing up in making sure we went to church. My dad typically worked weekends, and so he wasn't around, and there were 6 of us from age 10 down to 0, 10-year age difference, and you know, since we were little, I mean, she made sure every Sunday that, you know, not only got up and got cleaned up and dressed and everything for it, but that we went to Sunday school, and then we went to church afterwards, and you know, doing that all on her own was Yeah, and we weren't the most well-behaved kids you can imagine, because she can only watch a certain amount of them at once, and so trying to keep me and my other brother that was closest in age to me, we were not really cooperative with her, and of course that didn't go over well when we got home, but just just the strength that she showed of doing that, it's she could have very easily said, no, we're not going to go to church today.
It's too much work.
Yeah, but every Sunday she made sure we went there, and so that was a big part of our growing up, getting that foundation. Mm-hmm. And then the youth group, was a little different. Sunday school was a big thing when we were growing up in our church too. John and I both went to the same church growing up.
Oh, okay.
So, our Sunday school directors were what we perceived as mean ladies always, because they had a lot of work to do, and kids. I don't think kids behaved as well back then for some reason. But that was a big thing, as I got older and realized that. But our like Shawn mentioned earlier, it was called Walther League, and that was our kind of a first taste of. Like a Youth for Christ thing, but it was more just with our church family and a smaller group, and activities and just things that we would do together, once a month, different activities and that kind of thing. So those really stood out. Mm-hmm. So, and
to this day, it's still important for youth to have the generations, but they also need that time together themselves with activities and time to talk about their faith and grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, those are great stories. Anything else you'd like to share about your faith, or how you'd like to end it? Maybe we could end it with anything you'd like to say, and if you want to just share like a favorite song or hymn, something that might be meaningful to you, and then we can end for today.
Well, giving us the topic questions prior was helpful instead of thinking on the spot here. But I was starting to hum a song, and Larry goes, "No way! I just wrote that hymn down," and now I can't even.
They'll know we are Christians by our love. That was one growing up that both of us, kind of a camp song.
I had that one too. We must be in the same group.
Yes.
Yeah, both did both of us really well.
Yeah, and then whenever we're singing a song, a hymn in church that brings the tear to my eye, I jot down the hymnal number and song name, and Larry has a document of different things I want at my funeral.
Quite long.
Yes. So I change it up every now and then, but I love the traditional ones, but I want it a little different.
Yeah. That's it. I think of whenever I hear I was there to hear your mourning cry. That was in my dad's funeral, and it's still even talking about it really hits your heart and those kind of things. And like she said, the traditional Christmas, there's nothing like to me like candlelight service and singing Silent Night, and it's one of those. And then How Great Thou Art, I just think that one, it just speaks to everything to me.
And some of those just go on generation after generation, How Great Thou Art, Silent Night.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great way to end today. To say again how great Thou art, how great our Savior is. And thank you so much for coming and sharing part of your story. We know we all have, much more to share, but thank you for sharing with our congregation a part of your faith story. And thank you for the blessing that you are to our congregation.
Thank you.
Yep.